Right, well we've seen we've got composite video on the input to the RF modulator. RF output, obviously I don't know what the channel would be, but I'd have to get the TV to tune into that to do that. So what I thought I would do, as we've got a video output, I found the service manual, and in the service manual we've got the pin out for the video connector, and on pin 13 at the bottom there is ground, and pin 2 is composite video. So what I've done is I've hooked the my little test lead onto those two pins through a little cable adapter, and we've got my test monitor here, which I've set up the camera so you should be able to see what I see as it comes on. So the monitor is on. I've switched the computer off with that switch, so I can plug it into the same socket, switch the monitor on. We should get a blue light, and I should now be able to switch this on, and we should be able to see something coming up. Composite video, searching, see what we see. And we've got, oddly enough, we've got no lights on the keyboard or anything. Or did I turn it off? Perhaps I turned it off. Ah, I did. I switched it off. Switched it the wrong way. So the computer is now on a white screen. Okay. Whew. That's what I expected to see, based on what people have told me on the thing. And we leave it, and there we have a working machine. Now all we need to do is to plug in a mouse. Thankfully, also on eBay, I managed to find a ATARI mouse for sale, which, like the computer, is in a little bit of a sad condition in terms of cleanliness, but I took it apart and checked that the switches were actually working. So what I've got to do now is to plug this in to where the mouse goes. And as I'm not sure where that goes, bear with me a second while I switch it off, because I don't want to go moving stuff around, because I've got a feeling it goes into here, into one of these two. But I just need to just double check that. There they are on the keyboard. So I'm going to plug my mouse into there now. As I always remember from good old days, you always connect the peripherals before you power on, unlike modern computers. Let me just get the chassis, because it may say which one goes where, and it does. It shows joystick and mouse. So the mouse goes on the inner side of the connector, so it goes into this one, and it's the right connector. Look at that, love it. Let's turn that back over, get some tools out of the way. Switch the monitor back on again. Monitor should come on. Computer comes on. We got lights. Got lights. Got a blank white screen. Oh, hang on. And I'm moving the mouse. Oh yes, and it's just started to move a little bit. I think the mouse is in need of attention. I'm sure it moved, but anyway, should be able to do it with the arrow keys, shouldn't we? I don't know. F1, any keys doing anything? No keys are doing anything. Okay, so maybe we have, no, it moved then. Yes, it's moving now. Obviously got a bit of a dodgy connector. So that's good. So this mouse definitely needs some work doing to it, because it's moving everywhere but where we want it to go. Let's see if we go, so the operating system is working. And let's click on desktop info. Yeah, so there we have. We're in the gem. I remember gem. I remember gem on the old Amstrad PC 1512 and 1640. That had the gem desktop. The colours look really good, so I'm happy with that. So this, considering it's on composite video, it looks really quite good. So once I get this mouse sorted, so 1989 it was, we are, well, I am amazed. I'm absolutely happy as Larry. So we will have a look at the mouse, see if we can get that better, clean up the keyboard. Now I wonder if pressing OK, yes, the keyboard is working, so I just need to somehow is there a kind of text? I don't know how to operate this file. It doesn't show the ability to create like a text file or something. No. So we can't do a lot, possibly because there's no floppy disk and it's expecting to see a floppy disk. I don't know. I'm going to have a look at a bit more of the manual and learn a little bit more about it. But so far, it all seems to be working. The mouse is actually getting better as I move it. Maybe not. I've got a feeling the left mouse key is jammed. I did have a look at it and it looked okay, but I may well have put it back together incorrectly. Anyway, so next stop I think is to get this keyboard nice and clean, to get the circuit board checked. I just wanted to see if it was all the right memory was okay in there, but I think we're okay. I think we're okay. Need to get a plug to go into the video monitor connector so we can connect up an RGB monitor, because I think the picture will look even better on RGB. Need to check to make sure I can do that, get the floppy disk in, and I did actually get hold of, yes, a box of ATARI floppy disks. I've no idea if they're any good or anything, but there was just, again, a little job lot of ATARI floppy disks. It may be that one of those works, and again, I've got to learn how to use it. So I'll come back when I've got the next bit ready to show. Right, well, I just had a break for lunch, but before I went in to have my lovely scrumptious microwave meal, I took all the keys off the keyboard and popped them in a bowl of hot soapy water and left them to soak. But you can see that's the state of the keyboard underneath where the keys were, so that's still got to be cleaned off. I've just given all the keys a good old clean off with a brush, and they've just got to dry now, so I'm going to leave those to dry, but I will give this keyboard a clean off. I think what I'm going to do for now is I'm going to have a look at the cabinet, glue the cabinet bits and pieces back together to make sure that's nice and strong for when I come and reassemble it later on. Obviously I haven't tested the floppy drive or functionality of that yet. That's to do, so let's see how we get on. So I'm just going to give this keyboard a bit of a clean in the other room with a vacuum cleaner. Right, just giving it a bit of a brush off and sucked out with a vacuum cleaner, but there's a lot of ingrained dirt on here, so I'm going to give it a once over with a toothbrush and some isopropyl alcohol. So that usually works quite well at cleaning off stubborn, dirty stuff like this. I ought to put a little bit of paper towels down on here first. Right, a good bit of elbow grease. Can you see any grease on my elbow up there? Where's the camera out? There. See any grease on the elbow? I can't see any grease on the elbow, but anyway, it's because it's all gone. I've used it all up on cleaning this keyboard top as best as I can. There's still a few little bits and pieces. and I may still have to take it apart because I'm not 100% sure on how to replace these things, but I will look that up. I don't know whether these will just unclip from the top or whether I've got to actually remove the whole circuit board and membrane from underneath to get at that. But we will find out in due course. So I'm just going to reassemble the keyboard. Luckily, I took a picture of it before I took it apart. So let's get those keys back on. Right, got all the keys back in place apart from the alternate key where it was hanging on by a thread on this key. Right, so you can see that the inner part of the plastic has broken off inside there. It was just hanging on by a thread, and as I went to try and take that off, that just came away. So if I'm going to dig that out of there, I may be able to glue that bit back on, but if not, that means 3 of those key bouncers I'm going to have to get hold of to make it work properly. Anyway, let's see what we can do about getting it all back together. So I've put the rest of the keys on, the shift key, because I've just put the return key in. The little lever on there, there's a couple of plastic pieces. I'm sure I took them and put them somewhere safe, but I can't find them. So I've just temporarily put a little spring under there. So at least the return key does go up and down as it should do. So all else fails, I can still use these keys by pressing the plastic bits, but I would like to try and get that one out if I can. See what I can do. Right, managed to get the little plastic piece out of the middle of that, but when I'm looking at the actual push down here, it's actually fractured in across, so I can't even glue that back together. There's a little piece of plastic, but I'll hang on to it. It might come in handy. I might be able to glue it somewhere else, but definitely that now means 3 of those that I need and 2 new keycaps. But anyway, alternate, other than say, I can still press those to make it work. Right, let's see if I can glue the bits of plastic back onto the chassis and glue the chassis together. So I think first off we need to glue that. Now, what do you think, super glue or Araldite? What do you think I should use? Well, it certainly needs a clean to start with, so let's give it a clean. Right, so I've given it a bit of a clean. I've not put any lubricant on it, but I was just going over it with a brush, and it's actually got a lot of broken bits. It's obviously had a good drop. This bit of the chassis was broken off. I just pulled it a little bit and it came away further. This bit's cracked on here by the floppy drive, and this bit's cracked up here by, sorry, this is the floppy drive side, and this bit by the chassis there. So there's a lot of things. I'm basically just going to try super glue because the brakes look fairly clean. I'm not 100% really bothered about getting the cabinet in perfect condition. So long as it works, I'll be happy, because like my other computers or my other retro computers, it will probably end up sitting in a box somewhere because I shan't be using it on a day-to-day basis. But it's just something I've always wanted to have one of these, and I thought it would be good to get it going. Maybe such that I decide at a later stage that I can't really do anything spectacular with it, like my friends used to do all kinds of crazy stuff with it. But he wasn't a gamer, he was a programmer. I think he used it for programming. So I don't program, or I won't be programming on one of these. I can't think me doing that. That seems to have held. So let's put this piece here back on the front. And that's fitting together nicely. So all we've got to do is wait for it to set. Yeah, there's all big cracks all across here as well, so not 100% bothered that much. To tell you the truth, that one goes there, which is a bit too. Luckily, these are fairly clean fractures, so they should go together reasonably well. What I've done before on cabinets that have been broken that you need to have the cabinet working, I've done this, let it really set overnight, and then put hot melt glue around it as well. Looks a bit crap, but it gets the job done. So I'm going to leave that now. I'm not going to touch it anymore and wait for the glue, check the glue tomorrow. So 2 jobs to do tomorrow is to have a look at this mouse, see if we can get that working, put the floppy drive in, see if we can get that working as well. So see you then. Well, here we are, next day. I glued this last night and put tape on it just to hold it together, and it seems to be holding as well as it can. I'm not going to do anything more to this at the moment, this cabinet, but I think possibly because I'm not sure exactly how close everything all fits together, but if I can get the chassis back in, it may be that I can take it back out and then put some hot melt glue around the bits that are really sensitive, so I can just give it a little bit more strength. But ultimately I think probably see if I can source a replacement cabinet for this. So let's put that to one side. What I want to do now is to put this back together so that I can test out the floppy disk drive. Just make sure we're unplugged. Yeah, so I'm just going to unplug this for now. The floppy disk drive, now you may remember I was talking about bits of plastic. Well, I found some other bits of plastic, so it might be those, but the floppy disk drive seems to be in quite good order. There doesn't seem to be any problem with the circuit board. It just seems to be a bit dusty. I haven't cleaned it yet. Let's give it a bit of a clean off. I'll have a little look inside. Okay, now I'm just going to try putting a disc in and taking it out just to see that the discs actually will go in. It's one of these discs I bought as a job lot, so hopefully the disc goes in, yeah, and it ejects. Whether it works or not, I don't know. We'll come back to that in a little while. So that can't sit easily. Well, yes, it can. We've got 3 plastic spacers and a metal spacer that goes there. So I think we might be able to do that. I think this one, no, it doesn't screw into there. It's just a pin. So we might be able to just sort of hook it in, so we can at least test whether the floppy disk reads or not. Let's get that little metal, it's obviously a standoff, but it's a metal one to ensure, whoops, I'm pressing it down on the cable, I shouldn't want to do that, to ensure that there's a good earthing on there. So let's plug the power back in. Make sure that's sitting in the right place. There's little lugs on the chassis there, just at the back there, little lugs on the back of the standoffs that slot into the actual PCB. Okie dokie, so we reconnect the keyboard. Thankfully there's a little blanking area for the pin that's missing, so you can't actually get it in the round the wrong way, even though that's what I was trying to do. Right, so let's just make sure that with the floppy disk in place, it still boots up. Power on, we've got a green light here. Composite video searching. It's not detecting any video out for some reason this time. Okay, let's just double check. Does that pin come out of there? No. That pin's still in there. Floppy disk connector's in the right place. Nothing's been moved, so it should be alright. Still nothing. Right, so it seems maybe I've done something wrong, but the only two things I've done is put the floppy disk back in. So let's unplug the floppy disk again. Maybe the floppy disk is faulty. Right. This will prove it. What could we have done wrong? What could we have done wrong? Keyboard? Did we do any damage to that? Don't think so. The chip is still in the keyboard. We have got that plugged in correctly. I think we have, because the light comes on the keyboard. I didn't unplug the video cable up there. That's still plugged in. Let's unplug that from there. Can't see that I've done any damage to the PCB. I did have a cable there and I pressed that down. I was just wondering if that's maybe the RAM chips worked a bit loose. I don't know. I wouldn't have thought so. Right, so I think power supply is definitely nice and tidy. Move that connector up and down a bit, make sure it's got a good connection. And we'll have to use the oscilloscope to see if there's anything coming out of on the video side of things, because it might be the monitor. There's always a potential for monitors to fail. Let's connect that to ground. We can always check it on the RF converter. Right. Power on there. Power on here. Nothing on the video output pin. Anything on the RF modulator? Nothing. So she's decided to stop booting up by the look of it. Let's just press the reset. Well, that reset button, I would have thought that was a push button, but it just seems to be solid. I wonder if that's the fault. Could be that we've lost this machine. Something's gone wrong and lost it. So I'm just going to unplug the power supply and move that out of the way, just for simplicity purposes, and then have a look at the rest of this. Did I do any damage? Don't really remember doing anything on this, but that reset button definitely. Yeah, it's a push button, but it seems the spring has gone. I'm wondering if it's permanently in reset. Let's check that it actually does function. So, meter, we'll just do it on continuity. So I think that should be enough. Push it in. That makes connection to there. It's ground to ground. $70 ohms. Pull it out. And it's open. So I would have thought those two should have made, when the switch is out, these two pins here and here should be making, and they're not. But similarly, those two should be making, and they're not. I think what I'd like to do, I don't like that switch just floating. I'm going to take it off the board and get it out. Now I've got to put the the old desoldering tool on this because it's double-sided board. I really need a lot of heat in that area, so I'm going to come back to you after I've got that out. Right, well, I've got the reset switch out. Let's just get in a little bit closer on here so you can see. So there's the switch itself. Now, it's actually only 3 pins. The other 3 is one of the resistor packs that's right next to it. But I've taken the switch out. But surprisingly, there doesn't appear to be a spring in it. I would have thought that this was a momentary contact. So you push it, it resets, and then it springs back. But there seems to be no spring in it. Now either it's been taken out, or it never had one. So, weird. Anyway, the contacts in here, inside the switch, you can see the contacts on there are absolutely filthy. So, fibre pen, give it a clean. That's better. Let's do the other side. Okay, now as for the slider, it's a little bit more difficult to do. But again, you can just get the bristles of a fibre brush into there. Well, some people would just spray this with deoxit, which may well work. I prefer to give a manual cleaning to switches where possible. And we can see that one pair of contacts are a little bit further apart, so just a gentle squeeze. Put them back onto there. Yep. So I moved out of camera, so yep. That's now making a much better connection. I'm going to have a quick look at the user manual and see if it tells me what happens when I press the reset switch. Reset restarts the computer. That's got to be a push button. That's all it says. I'm just going to find a small bit of spring. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little spring in there at the back of that, because I'm pretty sure that should be momentarily push to reset. So I'm going to dig in my little box of odd bits and pieces that I've collected. And once I've found that, I'll come back. Right, well, I've had this switch out and repaired it. The spring was missing. I'm pretty sure it should be push to make. That seems to be the way it is wired to work. So as you saw, cleaned it all up, so hopefully that will work as it should do. Let's put it back together, just in case it was in a permanent reset condition. Let's put it back together. We're not powered up, so we can safely move things about. Ah. Oh, yes. I was wondering what that was. That's, of course, that's a floppy drive power connector. Right, so I'm going to put my scope onto the video output. I've got the monitor connected, so I can power it all up in one go. So monitor's on, and we're now getting a video output. There we go. Yay! So that seems to be what it was, is that the reset switch was in permanent reset mode. So let's just test that it works. There it goes, reset. We've done a bit of fault finding on a computer. It's good, eh? Right, let's power it down. Shut the main power off, and then we'll put the floppy drive in as we did before. So I would suspect that at some stage or other, although I couldn't see evidence that that switch had been removed, but if there was a spring in there, it's miraculously got out and disappeared. Right, got the floppy drive in there now, as you can see. So when we power it up, still got video output on the scope. No activity with the floppy drive. I can hear it going ka-chunk, ka-chunk. So it's obviously trying to read. And this is one of the things that they mentioned on the forum. Thanks very much to the guys on the forum. That if it's got the floppy drive in and you boot it up, until it's read a disk, you'll just get a white screen, which can confuse a lot of people apparently. So obviously that would have confused me, but thankfully, having removed the floppy drive, that allows it to boot up. So now we've got into this mode, and the picture quality is a bit trash, isn't it? What's happened there? Don't know. Of course, we haven't got a mouse on there yet, but has got floppy disk. Odd. Anyway, so far so good. Let's power it back off. What the next thing I want to do is to have a look at that mouse. See if we can make this mouse work, because it was not doing a very good job yesterday, was it?